How many of you feel like and believe that we are part of the greatest cause on this earth? How many of you truly feel that? If you don't yet, I pray even by the end of today, I pray by the time you have your classes, I pray as you have what's the lock-in, the prayer strike. I pray as you come and you're involved in these things that are being offered, that you don't ever leave any of those moments questioning, am I part of the cause? But you leave on fire, like lions coming out and knowing I am part of the greatest cause on this earth. What an honor it is to be part of that. Thank you, Jesus. I love that in the New Testament, we're just going to get right into this in Matthew 25, that Jesus, how many of you enjoy the parables? I love reading the parables because I'm a simple gal, right? Sometimes we overcomplicate things and we're like making it so deep that you're like, I'm trying to be there and I can talk the deep where I don't know. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. We had dinner with this man the other day. He was visiting from out of town and he was talking like in this words I just had never heard. It was kind of like a new concept. And we're all like meeting with him and we're shaking our heads. We're like, yes, yes. And then finally I had to say, okay, I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm just going to be real. And then he was like, oh, it's this new kind of new thought, new concept. And I was like, oh yeah, we're simple folk here. Which is the parable, is for simple folk here to say, okay, break it down. And that's what the parables do. So as you read the parables, just read them for what they say and just say, God, speak to me and make it come alive. And that's what he did in this one this week. So Matthew 25:14. It says, again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. Verse 15. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He left on his trip. Some of you are like, she's straight up going to talk about money today. I'm not. I'll let your pastors do that. 16, the servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earn 5 more. 17, the servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. Okay, I've heard this story over and over and over, and truly it came alive more than ever before. I'm going to ask Levi, I'm going to ask for you to come up. Come on up. The little ones went downstairs. I was going to ask the little one in the cowboy hat. Just for the sake, would you guys mind? Sorry, and you know what? I have pastors' kids, and I know they're like, what? Why are you doing this to me? Okay, but you guys are good sports. Are you good? Okay, so you are the first servant, okay? Okay, and Ayla, you're oh, by the way, congratulations at state. How cool was that the Davis girls... That was the coolest thing ever. We were like cheering you guys all on. First time ever. That was amazing. Good job. Okay. And Micah, you're the third servant. Okay. So I'm going to just use a visual here. So the first servant, how much did it say the first servant got? 5. Okay. I asked Brian to give me some. I asked him for gold, but he didn't have it. So. Okay, don't spend it right now, okay? Don't do anything shady. I'm watching you. How much did the second servant get? 2. Okay, good job. What you could buy, I don't know, what could you buy with that, Ayla? Candy bar, and you get 1, right? Okay. Dollar store, no, it's not even $1 anymore. You guys, it's like $1.25 now, right? I know. Okay, so the master was being fair. So the master said, okay, I'm going to give this to you. I'm going to give you my money. And I'm just going to ask you to just hold up, do something great with it, and I'm going to divide it according to your talents. And you're much more talented than $1, right? But he just saw their abilities. So he said, I'm going to just give you, I'm going to entrust you with that because I see your ability, and I see your ability, and it's all good. It's all good. So if the servant failed in his assignment, his excuses could not be that he was overwhelmed, or it couldn't be like, I didn't know what to do with this, because he was given according to his what? To his talents and abilities. So no one received more or less than they could handle. Micah, he can handle 1 talent. That's okay. And we all know this is not true of Micah, right? Micah's a man of many talents, which actually is very funny that you have the 1 talent. But he does like everything. He's an athlete. He makes like really cool stuff. He fishes, hunts. Okay, so we all know this is not true about Micah, right? Are we all good? Okay, you're like this. You brought this person in to pick on Micah. I'm not. Okay, so he had no excuses. So no one received more or less than they could handle. The bag of silver, which I wish I had, the bag of silver, it represented any kind of resources that are given. This isn't a money message. This isn't about the money. This is about the talents and the resources that they were given. So after a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used the money. So master's gone. He's like chilling in like Palm Springs, right? And he's like, I entrusted you with my money, and I trusted you to do something good with that, correct? So the servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more. What? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the servant who started with the 5 talents came up, show me your money. Like, really show me your money. What do you got? Show me. Fan yourself with it. Throw it in the air. He's like, I have. So he had a lot. Imagine this is silver. You guys, what does silver go for nowadays? It's a lot, right? An ounce. It's a lot. So he had a lot to show for. So then the servant, the second one, so the master was like, good job. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you. I didn't even have to break it down because you had what inside of you, you knew what to do with that, right? So then the master was full of praise. Well done. Good job. You've been faithful in handling the small. And so now I'm going to give you many more responsibilities. Come on, let's celebrate together. So they're going to celebrate. Where would you celebrate right now if you could? Anywhere. Disney World. So they're going off to Disney World to celebrate, right? It's exciting. So now the servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and now I've earned 2 more. What? Show it off. Show it off. Show off the money. So I've received 2 more. So then what did he say? He said, what? You've been faithful in handling this small amount. So now I will give you many more. He's like, Ayla, you're getting so many more responsibilities. You're getting so many more chores. You're getting, no, he said, I'm giving you more because I can trust you. Where do you want to celebrate? Let's go. Anywhere in the world. Italy. Okay, come on, give it up for Italy. I'm with you. So he's like, yes, we're going. So now the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, so master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money back. Give it to me. 1. He invested nothing. You don't get to go to Italy. You don't get to go to Disneyland, Micah. 1, he did not invest. But the master replied, this is so sad. The master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Okay, so now you get nothing. No, you guys collect your money. I'm going to give you the $1. You guys get to keep it. Keep what you invested. So then he ordered, take the money from the servant. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. Sorry, Micah, you have to actually give the money to the one who got the 10. You get nothing. So he said, give it. And now I caused a fan Levite. Sorry, guys. So to those who do well with what they're given, even more will be given. And when they have an abundance, but from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, so if we had the kids in here, what I was going to do, but I love that they're in kids' church. That's awesome. So if you look at this like, okay, is this about money? What are we talking about exactly? What I would have done is had them actually go out and grab people, because this is about souls. So instead of them going out and doubling the money, they're actually going out and they would get 10 people. That doubles to 20 people. So they're the investment. And yet here would be Micah, not really, but with not one person with him, to give you a visual of that. But I spared you all from having to get up. You're welcome. So today, we're going to talk about how gracious God is. That he gave everyone a gift. He put a gift inside all of us to be used for his glory and to advance his kingdom. So sometimes we're like, God, I don't have anything to offer. Yes, you do, because the moment there was air put in your lungs, he gave you a gift and you had something to offer. And for some of you, it might be more. And for others of you, it might be just one, but just the one can be invested and that can roll over and over and over to bring back a huge investment into his kingdom. And we can't ever look at the one who has all, like, well, they do everything. Well, Pastor Preston, I mean, he plays and he sings and he can preach good and God, and we can't look at that with like envy. No, we look at that and say, God, you blessed him with so much, but I know you put inside of me exactly what you want me to have, and I'm going to use it for your glory. Come on. So specifically the person who diligently prepares by investing his or her time, they're going to be rewarded. So if God is our master, we must obey what he's telling us to do, right? Sometimes we live in this world where they're like, do what you want. Enjoy life. You be you. No. What's been put inside of us has been put there for his glory and his kingdom, not to do what I want, not my will, but your will, oh God. That our time, our abilities, our money, it's not ours in the first place. And we have this awareness that every day we wake up, that we put on our assignment, we say, God, what is it you put inside of me to do today? And how can I use it for your glory? That we are not just caretakers of that. That he's allowed us to be owners of that. And he's given us ownership with him to be able to do that. And he puts his breath inside of us. And he calls us and qualifies us to be able to do that. Come on. That God is so gracious that he knows the ins and outs of our life. That he knows our past. And he still loves us and entrusts us. Isn't that powerful? That he doesn't look and say, oh, I know who you were, so I'm not going to actually trust you with that. No, he says, I know who you were, Saul, but I've called you to be a Paul for such a time as this. I've called you to do great things for my glory, and you're going to use your past, and I'm going to redeem it and give you where you had ashes, I'm going to give you beauty. What the enemy meant for evil, we're going to turn this for good, and you're going to see the people in your life get radically rocked by your past and your testimony. So the thing is, with this, I was like praying this week. I'm like, God, this is coming so alive to me. And you've got to help us. You've got to help me. Because life is busy. Life is crazy. And you know what else he said? And so is this. So is this. He's like, Kari, how much time do you have based on the talents that I've given you that actually get poured into this thing? So I'm not preaching anything to you that I didn't already this week have to seriously repent of. Because yeah, I could say it was easy back in the day when they were like Little House on the Prairie days, just plowing land. What did they have? They had nothing but to sow, to use their talents, right? And I'm like, God, life is busy. And he's like, y'all have made life busy. Technology, our schedules, everything has made life busy. But my plan for you is still the same from the moment you were born, that I put those talents inside of you, and at one day you will stand before me. And you can't say, but God, those podcasts were just popping off that day. But did you see, like, Insta? No, he's like, but what were the talents that I put inside of you to use for my glory? So we are modern day disciples. During COVID, I hit a point in my life where I was like, I'm tired. It was right before COVID. Our family, we had a major crisis in our home. I'm so sorry. Jesus, heal this right now. I know that's so annoying. We had a major crisis hit in our home, and I was like, maybe it's time for me just to retire. Maybe I'll just chill. And it went 1 week, and then it went into 2 weeks. And I remember the day that God spoke to me, and he said, I was like, God, I think this is it. I had a good run though, right? Did I have a good run? Did something good come out of it? And what do you think God says in that moment? Good job. You are off the hook from using any more talents, anything I put inside of you. You're good. That's exactly. He said, have I not called you to be a disciple, a modern day disciple? Is it not an honor and a privilege to be called by the Most High God? For this time, is it not an honor to be called a disciple? The disciples in the Bible, they were brutally beaten, killed for their faith. And here I am telling him, I just think I'm done. And he's like, you don't get to decide that. I mean, you can decide that, but you're not going to like the outcome of that. You are a disciple. You get to be a disciple. And I'm telling you, that changed my mindset. From there, I'm like, let's go. Let's go. The disciples, with 12 of them, 11 spread the gospel that we're talking about this very day with 11 people. Imagine what, as being a modern day disciple, what we can do right now. When I walked into this place and you guys were praying, that's what I felt. I felt fire everywhere you were standing. It was like, poof, poof, poof. And I was like, oh my goodness, this really does feel like the upper room in here. You're teaching on that. You're preaching on that. And it felt like the upper room when I walked into this place. So we don't have to do anything for Christ. He's like, don't do me a favor. You don't have to throw me a bone. Don't do me a favor. But we get to do these things for Christ, that he's allowed us to be alive. He's given us a voice, that I get to come to church, that I get to work a job that I don't even love, but God has me there on assignment for the cause of Christ. Can you say, I will work this job that I don't even like with these coworkers that are acting like crazy people for the cause of Christ? Can you say, for the cause of Christ, that I will go out of my way to tell people about Jesus even when it's uncomfortable, even when I'm in high school and kids don't even want to look at me? But for the cause of Christ, can I just even tell them that God loves them? Can I smile at them? For the cause of Christ, can I quit partying and living for my flesh? For the cause of Christ, can I set my plate aside and fast before him and give him what he's asked of me? Time. For the cause of Christ, can I stop drinking? This is like a huge thing in my and my husband's, our testimonies. And some people like bristle up when you even mention it. But could I even set the wine aside for the cause of Christ? Could I set the weed aside for the cause of Christ? Could I set the thought of being enlightened for the cause of Christ? Because it's everything that makes us feel good that the world says do. It's okay. That's between you and God. But for the cause of Christ, can I set these things aside to pursue him in holiness and righteousness? Can I choose not to sleep around? For the cause of Christ, can I just bless someone in need? If I'm in the store and I see a single mom looking for a few extra dollars, can I pull out an extra $5 and even pull out an extra $20 that was maybe my coffee money? Because I just know that this is probably going to be her cheese for the week. Could I, for the cause of Christ, just love on people? For the cause of Christ, can I turn my phone off? I'm preaching to myself. My husband went on a social media and a phone fast. And you guys, I straight up, being transparent, I straight up told him, God has not told me to do that. I did. I had no shame. I was like, that, God has not, he is not, no, I'm not convicted in that. I'm doing the work of the Lord. And he laughed at me, and I was like, that's funny. And then God was like, again, this is where I go back, just being transparent, right? So we're all called to be fruit bearers, right? But we're investors. We get to be investors in this, which bears much fruit. And I don't know about you guys. Do you know any farmers? When they bear much fruit, that is a good harvest season. That's when they celebrate, when they're bearing much fruit. That's when the full return on their investment. And then, praise God, if China gets involved and they start buying the cherries, come on. That's like a quadruple-fold blessing. And that's what we are called to be, is to be investors and fruit bearers. So God rewards faithfulness. That those who bear no fruit for God's kingdom cannot expect to be treated the same way as the faithful, just like here. Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to share this story. Because I love a story, it's like a parable, right, where I just connect. When you tell me a story, I won't forget your story. I just connect that way. Okay, we were raised, like I was raised in ministry, like poor ministry. Like we were running a mission, right? So we were like, we just didn't, I mean, we were in the cheese line. And I'm eating at the mission with everyone. Like, we're eating together. My grandma's cooking. My mom and dad are cooking in the mission. Because my parents were like, well, I'll do whatever I have to do for the cause of Christ. Which I'm like, I don't care. Give me Kool-Aid in my bottle. I literally didn't care. I loved it. I'm not joking. Actually, so my husband, his family, he was raised, his mom was, they lived on South Natchez Ave, just with a drug addict mom, with drug addict family members that he bounced home to home. And his grandparents took him in, and then finally in like 8th grade, his aunt took him in and gave him like stability. But he was raised in the cheese line with his grandma, right? Does anyone know what I'm talking about when I say that? That was like the best cheese. That was literally the best cheese. So he's literally like with his grandma. There's no money unless it's like food stamp time. And when it was food stamp time, they ate really good. They ate ceviche. It was really good. Okay, so mind you, then we get married and we're in ministry and we're just like trying to make ends meet, right? Well, in this time, we're newly married. So at this point, my husband does not know who his father is and never raised, like with a dad, didn't know, always wondered. His mom, who tragically was murdered in our city, and it was part of his story, just so tragic. Before she passed away, she told him who his father was. We didn't have the internet at that time, so I just start searching, and I'm like, I'm going to find your dad. We couldn't find his dad. He was a musician, happened to come through the valley. He traveled, did a lot of bands, did stuff out of the country. He was a real top-notch kind of dad that you want to find, right? But we found his grandfather, and his grandfather was an attorney, married, she was a first woman judge in Washington State. She was on the Supreme Court in the state. These were prestigious, very wealthy, prestigious people. And we were like so ghetto, right? We were just like, hey, what's up, And he was like so proper. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we go to his house and he would cook us like really gourmet meals. And I'm like, wooz, 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 like we would be like, oh, we're so fancy. And so his grandfather called us one day. His grandfather had no grandchildren, mind you. Brian was it. And he said, could I drive over and come see you one day? And we were like, yes, you may. And so I'm like, get the house together, Grandpa's coming over. And so he came over, spent the weekend with us, and he said, I have a question for you. Would you mind, now my girls were little at this point, he said, would you mind if I sent your children to finishing school in Paris? And we were like, yes, we're trying to speak French. And I'm like, my girls are not going to Paris, without me. But we were like, okay, we'll think about it. And he said, so I have another question. Could I give them both a full ride scholarship to college? Where I came from, that was never going to be a possibility. Where Brian came from, that was never a possibility. Unless my kids were like star athletes. That was not a possibility. Sorry if they're watching. Like nothing but this dream. Like that is a dream to have someone call you up and not only say, and he said this, I would also like for them to backpack through Europe for a month. Just to because he probably was like, oh, these people need some they need some culture. And I'm like, yes, and yes. So anyway, we had this really loving relationship with him. And it was just like such a cool thing that my husband got to experience that with like a grandfather, just this loving relationship. He would send us gifts, you guys, from the Smithsonian, right? I'm like, okay, that was crazy. So anyway, we get a call that he's passing away. He had been with us, but then when he went into the hospital, he didn't have anyone over where he lived. So we rushed over, and all we wanted was for him to accept Jesus. He was what he called himself a pagan. He got offended in church years ago. He was leading a youth group in the Presbyterian church when he was in high school in Michigan. They had a massive revival. 1,000 kids were coming. And he got offended at an elder, and completely walked away from it all. Walked away. So not only was he was broken. So on his deathbed, we're begging him, like, please, we don't even care. We don't care about any of the money. We care about nothing. Please accept Jesus. Begged him, cried, and we don't know. But he passed, and so they said, we need to make the affairs, get the affairs in order. We're his only relative who had anything to do with him. So we go to talk to the attorney to get the affairs in order, and he said, your grandfather not only was completely broke, but your grandfather owed a lot with mortgages, and we have no clue why. We know nothing about his finances. And I was like, okay, we'll figure this out, how to even bury him. We'll figure it out. And I said, is there anything for the kids, at all? And they said, there's nothing for anyone. And, that was kind of a hard blow because we did nothing to save for our kids, future, nothing. So I was like, you know what, God, you're a provider. We were fine. We were just really sad he died and just praying that he accepted Christ. That was what was most important. But through that, what we learned is that we were like those investors, or we were like the 5 foolish virgins that it talks about in the Bible, that when Christ comes, right, and they had no oil, that was us because we were banking on the fact. I kept telling my girls their whole life growing up, you guys, college is paid for. You can go wherever you want. And you're also going backpacking through Europe, and you're also going to finishing school, whatever you want. And then it comes down to the point where I'm like, yeah, hope you got some really good grades. Hope you did well at Riverside, because that golf career probably isn't going to get you a scholarship. Did nothing. And through that, we learned such a valuable lesson spiritually on this side of it, that Jesus is coming back. That this isn't just a parable that we read and we're like, oh, well, that was back in Matthew. No, he lays all of this out because he's laying the ground for us to know, I am coming soon. And you are either going to be ready or you are not going to be ready. There's one of two choices. You're ready or you're not ready. You've invested all the talents and everything I put inside of you. Your oil is full and you are ready to you're telling people about Jesus. You're praying, you're seeking God. You're doing all of these things, keeping your oil full. Or you're like that foolish one who says, wait, what? I was expecting this would be taken care of. I thought this would be paid for. So I think for some of us, we say realistically, we're like, what do we do then? So I've been given talents. How do I use that? How do I apply that? Does this mean that I quit my job? Does this mean that I just sit around and then I'm going to use my talents when the time is right? No, today is the day. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day to use the talents that God has put inside of you. Today is the day to stop saying, I can't do that. Today is the day that we say, yes, God, to whatever your will is, whatever you put inside of me, I'll use for your glory. Can you say that today? Can you just say, yes, God, for the cause of Christ? Because people are dying and going to hell, I will use what you put inside of me for your glory. I'm going to read this and then we're going to wrap this up. Matthew 25, 31 through 46, and you can go there. How are y'all doing? Matthew 25, 31. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. And all the nations will be gathered in his presence. And he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. And then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did I ever see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and gave you something to drink? Or, God, when were you a stranger and I showed you hospitality? Or naked and gave you clothing? When did we ever see you sick, God, in prison and visited you? And the king will say, I will tell you the truth. When you did this to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. Have you heard the scripture before? I know because I've heard your pastors preach on this. And I pray this is just hitting us home, or hitting us home. Hitting home with us. And then the king will turn to those to the left, and he will say, away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. And I was thirsty, and you did not give me a drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me into your home. I was naked, and you didn't give me clothing. I was sick in prison, and you did not visit me. And then they will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick in prison, and not help you? And he will answer, I tell you the truth. When you refuse to help the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you are refusing to help me. And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous will go into eternal life. I pray, church, that we wake up. I know I'm preaching to the choir today. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. But what I pray I'm doing today is that it just reaffirms what your pastors are already preaching. That we wake up with a fire. That tomorrow is not normal. Monday is usual. But we are burning for the cause of Christ. that I will do unto those, God, as you long for me to do, and use what's inside of me to use it for your glory. That the real evidence of our belief is the way that we act and treat people in our city. How about this? The real way that we show who we are is how we treat our coworkers. The true way, how about this, is that we treat our family right. It's one thing, listen, it's one thing if someone just like cusses you out and you're walking down the street and you're like, okay, whatever, keep walking. It's another when it's your mom. It's another when it's your sibling. It's another when it's someone around you and they know everything about you. And you still have to position yourself as not just their brother, but as a brother in Christ to say, you know what, I'm choosing not to punch you right now in the face. But I'm choosing to still, I know who I am, and I'm going to love you. And I'm still going to speak life into you. Preston, do you want to come up? Are you good? I know, yeah. And I know I'm Preston, Pastor Preston, you play, I see, did you have readers on, Pastor Preston? It's okay, I've got mine in my pocket. It's a whole thing. What I just prayed today, okay, listen, I'm going to tell you, like this message, I was like, Lord, is there anything else that we can talk about today? Is there anything else? And I am not kidding. Everywhere I went, he kept saying, everywhere I went, don't bury the talents. Don't bury the talents. That there are souls that need redeemed church starting today. And I feel like sometimes in the society we live in, there's so much coming at us that sometimes we just shut down. Do you ever feel that way? Like there's just so much and we shut down. But that's the plan of the enemy, to make us lethargic. That we're running like these hamsters on the wheel. He wants to shut us down so we are so lethargic that I can't do what God's called me to do. I can't accomplish it. I just feel like I'm in an encasement watching life go by. That I just pray that today that God does something in you and even a supernatural work. And I just would love just to pray for you. I know you get good prayer in this house, but lay hands on you. That I hit a point even this year that I was just feeling really like apathetic. It was a spirit of apathy that was causing me to be numb. You ever felt numb? And I said, oh Lord, no, I can't. Because 1 year could go into 50 years, and now I've just lost it. Not saying I've like lost my salvation, but I've lost passion. I've lost for the cause of Christ that I'll do anything. You guys, when I see a truckload of Christians this week who have lost their heads just because they said, for the cause of Christ, I won't bow down to your God. When I've seen them beaten, and I could scroll past that for a second. And you know what? I thought, oh God, touch the persecuted church. I don't even want to see it. And God said, look at it. Look at those people who've lost their lives, who've been chopped up piece by piece until they would say that I don't serve Jesus. And they won't say it. There's no little kids. She's good, right? We good? That they walk into the church right now and they start with their thumbs. And it's piece by piece until they say, I won't serve Jesus. And they won't say it. That is so convicting that we could just go past it. I'm saying this to me. I'm not like, but we've got to wake up. The American church, we've got to wake up. That I've heard people say this. Well, persecution's going to come in the last days, and it's not happening yet. And I'm like, yeah, because someone came against us on Facebook. We feel so persecuted. Our feelings are so hurt. There are Christians being persecuted right now. And then we could just sit and just want to be so comfortable. And Pastor, you feed me. You feed me. And God is saying, I put inside of you everything Yakima needs, everything this world needs. Don't be overwhelmed by it. And don't be just apathetic and shut down. But ask him to rip the Band-Aid off. I don't want to be numb. Let me be raw for these things that break my heart, because what breaks your heart should break my heart. That I can't be okay to see kids who are walking past in high school. Our kids just a few weeks ago said goodbye to a student. See ya. And he went home and he killed himself. And they're gripped with grief, saying, what if we would have said something else to him besides see ya, bye, jerk? Or, I'm saying that's like in our culture, it's like everyone just like whatever. And just asking God for the cause of Christ, that I would surrender, trying to be too cool or trying to surrender my own thoughts in my own head and look people in the eye and say, I have a talent to give. And some of that is literally just a smile, a hug, paying for someone's groceries, singing on the worship team, serving in kids ministry. I lived, and I feel like I maybe shared this story with you guys, but I need to share it again. I lived a few years ago, just a couple miles away from here. And this neighbor was new to our house. And I haven't always been neighborly, because life's like busy, right? Is there anyone here who's like super neighborly? You can say like, I'm very neighborly. I love you all. I'm with you now. Now I'm with you. But I did not understand neighborly people before, because I was just busy in and out all the time. So a man came over, new to the neighborhood, and I was in my pajamas and whatever. I was just like, oh man, I was like, look out the window. My hair's everywhere. And I was like, oh, babe, the neighbor's here. The new neighbor guy's here. And he's like, I don't want to go to the door. I was like, I'm definitely not going to the door. So he came over, introduced himself, and I was like, oh, he is a nice guy. And my thought was, I hope he's not going to be one of those neighbors who's just like, want to like come over all the time. I'm just being transparent. You guys are like looking at me with judgment. You're like, she is. I'm just being honest. This was me a few years ago. And he just said, I just want to meet you. I think he brought like some apples over. And I was like, oh, that's cool, And I would pray. I pray for my neighbors. I've always prayed for my neighbors, but I just don't want to like be friends with my neighbors. And so this was like a little bit later. My daughter calls me, and she's home alone. And she said, Mom, what's going on in our neighborhood? The police have this house surrounded. And I'm freaking out. And I'm like, oh, man, I can't even get to you. I don't even know what to do. So we're trying to rush there. And she calls me, and she says, Mom, the police are yelling outside, begging this man not to kill himself. They had his daughter there on the speaker. And this forever will haunt me in the best way. This like messed me up for the rest of my life. That his daughter was on the megaphone screaming, Dad, please don't do it. Dad, you know we love you. Please don't do it. Don't do it, Dad. And they waited and they waited. And she just kept. It was on repeat of her begging him. And then we found out that he had taken his life. He'd been through like a hard divorce, felt that no one in the world loved him. I had to sit there and watch his parents. By the time we got in, his parents were getting the news outside of the house. And his parents just looking like so lost. And that messed me up because I was the neighbor who was so annoyed that he came over when I was in my pajamas. My hair was a mess. And all he needed, literally all he needed, was someone just to be a friend. Somebody just to ask him, how are you doing? I'm a good neighbor now, guys. Take your judgment eyes off of me now. But it messed me up forever. And I said, no neighbor or nobody will ever walk past me again with me being irritated because I don't have time. I don't care how annoying they act. I'm like, God, let me see what you see. Let me see what you see. And a lot of times, I promise you, all people need is a smile, a hug. And you know what's crazy is when God tells me, I'm not like a huge hugger, but when he tells me hug someone, I'm like, God, you hug them. You use me to hug them. And when I do, you feel people who've been just hurt in life, you just feel them melt. It can literally be a hug. Some of you just saying, I don't have all the talents. Do you have a hug? Do you have a smile? Do you have a nice word? Can you take a batch of Toll House cookies to someone's house? Can you volunteer and say, you know what? How many teachers do you have? 2? Can we double that investment? Do you know who we have downstairs? We have the next Billy Graham downstairs. We have the next revivalist. We have the next Reinhard Bonnke downstairs. But who's going to teach them for the cause of Christ? That even the little snot noses need a Kleenex and need Jesus, right? I just felt like God was just, his love, as I was praying over this message, I felt like his love was so over Redeemed Church. He said, this is the love of the Father over us today. That at the end of our time here, at the end of the day, I just pray I get raptured. Come on, does anyone just want to be raptured? I'm like, I'll live as long as he wants me to, but I'm like, at the end of the day, how fun would it be? Just think, and then we're all like, But at the end of the day, whether we die of old age, whether we leave today, God forbid, but our eternity is not promised. We do not know. We do not have a clock over our heads. We have no clue. A man from our church last week, getting ready to retire, just retired, dropped dead of an aneurysm. No warning. And I don't say this as like a cliche, like little Tommy left church and got hit by a train. And I'm not saying all that to be like manipulative. I am very aware that we are flesh. But at the end of the day, when we come face to face with Christ, that all the talents that he's put inside of me, this is the prayer of my heart, and this is my prayer for the church as a whole, that there would be such a return on Christ's investment, that we would not be the one that says, I kept it, I was a good kid, I never did anything bad, I served you faithfully, I brought my Bible to church, I was in the front row, I was holy. And he's like, you didn't even know me. Depart. You don't know me. You wore religious rags. You heaped ashes on your head. You wore prayer boxes on your arms to show people you were holy. But inside you were a filthy cup who didn't know me. You didn't do my work. Thank you, God. You know what I love? I love that he entrusts us, that he trusts you. That's why there's air in your lungs. Because he trusts you. That he's not a God who's waiting for you to fail. He trusts you. He puts it in you, and then he's like, okay, watch. I trust them. He trusts us. Have you ever had one person in your life trust you? One. Isn't that the best feeling in the world? He trusts you with the talents he's put inside of you. If you're feeling condemnation, that's from the enemy. That is straight up from Satan. And let me just tell you what the enemy will do. Let me tell you what he does. Is he puts condemnation on you so that you're shut down where you feel like I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything for the Lord. And that's what shuts you down. That is a lie from the pit of hell. He trusts you. And every day his mercies are new. Every day he trusts you all over again, right? But even today he's like, watch my kids, watch what they're going to do. It's Monday morning. Watch them, here they go. And he trusts us. This church, Redeemed Church, this is good soil to plant in. This is good soil. You can plant, you can use your talents, not just here in the church, but here in the church, and then they'll have you like, oh, use it out there. Because then it's all for his glory, which comes back, because Christ loves the church. He died for the church, and he loves the church. And if you're wondering, like, even if this is your first time here, like, is this a good place? This is good soil. Put your roots down in here. When pastor's saying we're having these things going on, take note. Like, where will I be found? I will be found in the house of the Lord. That I would rather be a door maiden. I'd rather stand at the door, the gates of the door of the house of the Lord, than anywhere else. Wherever they need help. Let your pastors know today that you support them. Let your pastors know if you support them. If you don't, man, just get on your face before the Lord. I know you all are working with them, and I feel that. But if you have anything where you're like fighting back against anything, and you don't even know what it is, you're like, I don't know what this is. You got to just surrender it today. Ask for forgiveness and surrender it. There's no perfect church. There's no perfect pastors. I know it's shocking, right? I know you're shocked to know this. He might preach something one week and you're like, oh, boy, that just really chapped my hide. I didn't like that. This is a man of God. Pastor Becky's a woman of God. And you have to know that they're speaking what God has given them. And if there's something you don't agree with, submit it to the Lord. And still, don't fight against it. Still keep saying, I surrender to this house. I want to sow roots in this house. For the cause of Christ, I will help sow into Redeemed Church. And I encourage you just to tell him this today. And Pastor Becky, when you see her, for the cause of Christ, I've got your back. Don't complain about anything. Don't tell them. Don't even tell them how your week was. Nothing else except this. Just give him this sentence, for the cause of Christ. I'm moving forward with you. Thank you, Jesus. You know, I want to share this, and then I'm going to wrap this up. I keep saying that. Is that like how many do you get? 3 or 4? In the church, they say the Pastor DeWitt. So we moved, there was a time where we moved to the Seattle area. And we were pastors it was a really large church there. And I came from a smaller church here in Yakima where my parents were the pastors. And we did everything, right? We were the janitors. We were the secretaries. I was kids ministry, youth pastor. We did it all. We just, you do what you can do until like God really just starts to really grow it. And we jumped ship. We saw a shiny penny. We got a really good offer. I'm just being really transparent. And they put out a really great thing for us. Like, we want you to come. And we were like, yeah, I mean, like Brian he had so much pain here, so much pain. He's like, I want to get out anyway. Let's go. So left my parents and asked for their blessing, which, it was really sad. We go to the church. We realize, you guys, moved our whole family over there and realized immediately we were out of God's will. But we were in the pretty church. It was so beautiful. Immediately it had 1,000 people coming in, and everything was so perfect. Their coffees were perfect. Everything was perfect. And so I'm greeting because I'm trying to figure out, where to be in that place. And so I'm greeting one day, and this new couple, they came in, and I was like, hi, tell me, who are you? Where did you come from? And they were like, well, we go to this really small church. We've been helping plant this church right down the road in Federal Way. And we've been going there for years. But we saw your church, and one day we were like, let's pull over. Let's see what this church has. And we never went back to our other church. And they're laughing, and I was like, so sad. But everybody else was rejoicing. They're like, yay, we've got another one. And I was like, no, you just got a transplant who abandoned their post. They left their church that they were sowing into, and they were supposed to help them grow, and they just took their entire family out for a shiny penny. And sometimes God is in that. I'm not saying he's not, because you might have come from somewhere else to come here because God brought you here for a purpose. So I'm not saying by coming here you are being disobedient. Do you hear my heart? But they never went back. They never told their pastor. And I cried over that because I'm like, you know what? My parents are trying to pastor a church down here on Lindy Lane with a very small crew of anyone who can help them. And someone dangles something, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna leave. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the bigness of that. And I just want to thank you guys. I know you hear it from your pastors, but thank you for being here. Thank you for serving. Thank you for allowing your roots to go deep. And when the wind comes up, you're not wavered. Thank you for bringing people in. Thank you for meeting people on the streets or wherever you're at, inviting someone to be in this place. Thank you. Thank you. Let's do more, because this is a good place. This is a great place. So here's the vision of Redeemed. I don't know if you've read this, but I read it, and you guys have a great vision. And I'm just going to ask as I read this, I want this to burn in your heart today. That your vision for the city of Yakima Redeemed Church is to reach and influence our city by building people into who God has called them to be here on earth. That we are spirit-led, come on, Bible-centered. We're called to transform mindsets, empower people, lead and impact in every sphere of life. The Redeemed Church, that you will accomplish this by equipping people through the vehicles of prayer and the word, which transform our community. That means you're using your talents for this body to transform your community. The Redeemed Church, you believe that every person has God-given purpose and destiny, which can affect our city. We want to empower each person at Redeemed City Church to step into their destiny and fulfill their God-given call on their life. How cool is this? That your pastors have already set the vision that goes along with equipping you with the talents that God has put inside of you. How cool is that? This is a win-win. They're not making it hard for you. They're saying, what the talents that God's put inside of you, let's see it. Let's see it now. We're going to help you accomplish that. So I just want to pray. I want to pray for two different people. If we can just stand. I was looking at, I think I'm going to keep it here just for a minute. Thank you. I was looking at our stats, and this is an old statistic in Yakima. This is 2023. But in 2023, Yakima has a population of 256,643. 256,643. So, now it's grown so much, even since then. I was kind of figuring approximately like how many people would be in churches, and I think I was very generous in this. But I think there's approximately about 20,000 people who are in churches. I think that's pretty generous, right? Yeah. So out of 20,000, say, that are in churches, there's 240,000, rounding up, in our community. So let's do the math. There's a lot of people who need Jesus. And what I want to pray for today, what I want to pray specifically, are for those who are tired. Those feel tired, you feel drained by life, you feel apathetic or weak, just kind of like you feel maybe that numbness of just like, I hear the word, but I don't know, I just feel like it's that feeling that the enemy is just trying to shut you down. And I just want to pray over you today that be lifted off you, that God give you a revitalized passion, that you would leave this place feeling like, for the cause of Christ, I will do anything for you, Jesus. I want to pray for you because I believe when I was going through that at the beginning of the year, I just had to get alone with God. And I just had to have this moment of like, God, deliver me from this heaviness. It was heaviness that was on me. That the enemy was just trying to hold me down and making me feel so overwhelmed that I was shut down and couldn't do anything. And then condemnation comes through that, right? But also I want to pray. I don't want to assume everyone here that you're all Christians. I feel it. I feel like from you, I feel like it just feels so good, but I don't ever want to assume, because there could be one person here that maybe you've prayed this prayer many times, but you've just prayed it and you've never really, like, out of your heart prayed this prayer, asking Christ to completely take over your life. Like, I surrender everything.